Welcome to our podcast called The 3-Minute Reel, brought to you by AIM Higher and Education Incorporated. This particular series is called Real Talk on Education. I'm your host, Raketa Thomas.
Thank you for inviting me. My name is Christopher Jeffords. I am a high school Spanish teacher.
All right, first question, sir. What do you feel are the biggest challenges that education has had to face during this pandemic?
I think when we first transitioned to this around March here in North Carolina, I think the issues that we had as a district and as educators was providing reliable access to our students.
So my second question for you is, what things were done well and what was not done well by your school or by your district?
Teachers, I don't think teachers had the appropriate training and PD on how to shift to online learning. Which I know in our district, we had the blended learning module and instructional coaches that were coming into schools and really working with educators and teachers on how to facilitate a blended model. I don't know if that really took a stronghold, but it kind of showed during the pandemic, the shift to online learning, that teachers scrambling to put content online and from an equity lens without taking into consideration the access question, which is fundamental, right? And even if you did take into consideration the access question, the learning of what materials to use, it's a holistic approach when you think about it, right? What content are teachers using? How are we implementing that content? Access, it's pretty big challenges, right? So I think just the training on PD, and I know at the beginning it's a struggle. No one prepared for this, right? This wasn't like, oh, we had this in the wings, we got this plan. Look, I'm going to pull it out. Here it is. We're ready to go, right? No one really planned for that. But I think with we could have done a little more preemptive work.
As a teacher, how have you addressed concerns around equity?
I look at the materials I'm using, right? And who's being represented and through what lens are they being represented? Are they reflected in my resources, right? And what lens and what stories are they being told through? So first and foremost, through equity, it's not just about, let me use Edpuzzle, let me use Quizlet, let me use any online platform, throw it up there. Really, it's about, for me, thinking about it through an equity lens, the materials that I use, see on Twitter and media, where teachers are posting their norms, and some of them are just absolutely not taking into consideration the lived experiences of some of their students in their classes, right? So I think for me, co-creating those norms with my students will be important, right? Building those relationships. I think teachers and I, asking ourselves, how can I best serve all of my students in a way that is equitable? Meaning, when you say in a way that's equitable, it's like, what access concerns do my students have? What are their living conditions? What relationships have I developed with returning students or new students? What are the materials that I'm using? What are the resources that I'm using? And, and do we, thinking of questions, do we as educators, especially white educators, I may ask ourselves, where do these norms come from, right? And it really takes a lot to uncover our implicit bias. And so those are things that I ask myself, and I ask other educators to ask themselves. And it takes a lot of critical self-reflection in order to do that. And it's important, especially if you're a white educator working with students of color. It's even that much more important, right? In my opinion, as a white educator, right? These issues around equity have been around a long time. Equity has been the thing, right? It's not new. I just hope that, educators continually really humble themselves and learn to reflect on the equity aspect of our teaching and our practices and our pedagogies. I go back to the representation matters for all our students, to be humble, to be willing to accept that no matter if you've been teaching 20 years or 2 years, right? That sometimes you get it wrong, and be willing to accept that, move forward and continue to learn. And take care of yourself. Take a little time for yourself.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, The 3-Minute Reel. We hope you enjoyed it and that you'll come back and hear the next one. This podcast has been brought to you by AIM Higher and Education Incorporated, where we focus on education for success.